Hi everyone. We are going to get started. Thank you so much for joining us for this info session to learn more about our spring 2022 pre-college offering, which is being led by Laurel Zyma of the Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory that's part of the Columbia Climate School. So I want to start with just a few quick important pieces of information about our spring pre-college programs, which fall under our non-degree programs at the Columbia Climate School. So these are really opportunities for high school students to take science learning out of their classroom, engage in conversations about climate change, and really build a nice network and work with like-minded students and peers in addressing climate change in your communities. We have offered previous workshops that have looked at different topics such as creating your own CO2 sensor to monitor CO2 emissions indoors and outdoors. We've done one on youth leadership that was a little bit different than that was less focused on climate action, whereas this workshop is primarily focused on climate action and what to do in your communities about climate change. And last semester, we offered a science communication pre-college workshop. And so there's a great variety of work to be done in this area. We are very interested in having high school students participate in this effort. And just a quick reminder that these are non-credit workshops. And so they are workshops, there are no transcripts. Participants do not become students of Columbia University in any way. And these are really meant as extracurricular opportunities for you to work with somebody at Columbia. And as I said, start building your network with like-minded peers who are also interested in the topic. So these workshops are also led, they're led by the same faculty and staff that we have leading efforts in our degree programs. So we maintain very strong academic rigor in these workshops. The best part is there is no official homework. We will assign suggested readings for participants who are interested. And if you would like to have office hours with the instructor, that is something that we can definitely do. The point of these pre-college programs is really to get you thinking perhaps outside of the box a little bit, learn in a new environment, and be able to walk away with skills and ideas that you can implement in your own communities right away following the workshops. So these are fee-based opportunities, and there are reduced rates available for participants in Title I schools. If you do have questions about reduced rates, please feel free to email me. You all have my email as a result of signing up for the info session. And we provide a certificate of participation to everyone who enrolls and signs up for the workshop. And that just indicates that you have participated in this, the number of hours that you've put towards this effort. All the recordings, we record everything. All the recordings are made available after each workshop session, along with slides from the instructor. And so if you do end up missing a session, you are definitely able to catch up. And if you have to join something late, that's definitely okay as well. So today we're going to hear from Laurel. Please use the Q&A box during the info session, and I will hand it over to Laurel, and we'll come back for Q&A afterwards. And feel free to type in questions as they come along. So Laurel, take it away.
Thank you so much, Cassie. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today. My name is Laurel Zyma. I am the Education and Outreach Coordinator at Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory. I'm so excited to be sharing a little bit about this pre-college workshop that we're going to be hosting this spring called Empowering Youth for Climate Action. So just a little bit of background on why this workshop is so important. Climate change it's impacting every facet of our lives. The array of climate change effects threaten global ecosystems and the services they provide, food and water security, human health, transportation, infrastructure, coastlines, and economies. While climate impacts are widespread across the world, the magnitude of the impacts are not felt the same due to inequitable access to resources. So low-income communities, communities of color, and historically marginalized communities are disproportionately impacted by climate change, which drives climate injustice. So addressing these climate change issues requires everyone to be involved in the climate conversation and to take action. So climate adaptation, mitigation, and justice needs to happen on multiple levels, from personal to international and in every discipline. So everyone must join the climate movement with their diverse skills and interests and ideas. And youth in particular have a very important role to play in driving climate action, which is the basis of this whole workshop. So young people are inheriting a world with record high anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions, and consequently, it intensifies climate challenges. So many students, they feel that local, national, and global decisions are being made about them, but without them, which really drives this feeling of helplessness or climate anxiety, if you've ever heard of that phrase before. However, young people around the world have bound together to make their voices heard and have really emerged as major players in the creation of a more climate just and sustainable future. So young people, they offer creativity and optimism and fresh solution-based ideas that are often not bound by any constraints. And these are very valuable things that are offered toward the climate movement. So when youth are incorporated into the climate conversation, they play an influential role in climate meetings and negotiations, such as the COP26 meeting that just happened recently. So these voices clearly need to be brought to the forefront of climate planning and decision-making. And this course is specifically designed to support high school students with the knowledge and skills and tools to drive climate action in their own communities and to elevate these youth voices. So some key things about this course: relevant scientific literature, state, national, and international reports are going to be the basis of all lessons and activities to really increase students' climate knowledge and concepts of resiliency and understanding of solution-based management. The workshop will increase youth climate literacy by providing a foundational background about the climate system and natural variability before we dive into the science of human contributions to the current anthropogenic climate change. The students are going to have an opportunity to improve their data analysis skills, temporal and spatial understanding by interpreting a variety of different data visualizations, graphs, maps, and other data sets. So there are tangible skills that students will be walking away with. We'll also be exploring global and regional impacts of climate change, and it will be investigated depending on where the students live. So we're definitely going to be exploring a variety of climate impacts, but the focus of the regional impacts will be determined by the student body. So the students can learn about the challenges that are impacting their area so they can best be equipped to address those challenges. Finally, climate communication, adaptation, and mitigation strategies and real-world scenarios through case studies will be explored to equip students with tangible climate solutions that they can implement into their climate action plans. So the ultimate goal of this workshop is for students to create their own climate action plan by the end of the program. So students will have the creativity, the freedom to develop their own solutions and plans that will address one climate challenge that their community is facing. So youth climate action and climate stories will be shared to inspire and showcase the power of youth in the climate movement. A climate action framework will be provided to ensure that the students' plans have implementability and address key criteria such as timelines, the inclusion of stakeholders, community involvement, and costs. Students will then share these climate action plans with the other peers that are in the program, but as well as a panel of professionals in the field. So they will have the opportunity to gain feedback and advice so they can make these plans a reality. So through this workshop, students will acquire skills and knowledge to address local climate challenges and make positive change in their communities. They will increase their data literacy and grow their spatial and temporal understanding of climate impacts, both on a global and regional scale. They'll develop youth leadership skills to encourage peers and adults to support the climate action plans that they've developed for their community. And through this program, you'll learn different personal ways to commit to the climate movement and different communication skills to encourage others to join your initiatives. And finally, improving their science and climate communication strategies and public speaking skills through the presenting of their climate action plans. So taking a little bit deeper of a dive into what the workshop topics are, there'll be 7 sessions, each running typically for about 2 hours. We're going to start by looking at the climate system and natural variability to get that baseline understanding of Earth's climate system. Then the next session, we're going to dive into the human contributions to today's anthropogenic-driven climate change. Then we'll look at global and regional climate impacts, specifically focusing on how these impacts are impacting people differently around the world and also disproportionately impacting historically marginalized communities, and looking at climate injustice and climate justice. Then we'll look at solutions, so climate adaptation and mitigation strategies and technologies, climate communication, so you can share your new knowledge with your friends and your family and your networks. The 6th session will be focused on the development of your climate action plan. So as a group, we're going to have discussions and activities to kind of set the framework. And then there'll be opportunities to bounce ideas off of each other to kind of fine tweak this plan. And then on the 7th session, you'll be able to share your climate action plans to your peers and to a panel of professionals. So just a bit about the logistics. The format of this workshop includes a mix of lecture, discussions, activities, and different audiovisual materials. Participants are high school students that really have an interest in science, impacts, and solutions of climate change on multiple levels. There are no science prerequisites needed. We will start looking at the climate system as a whole to give that foundational background for everyone who would like to participate. If you do have a background in earth science, that may be helpful for this workshop, but not necessary. And all these workshops are going to be held virtually via Zoom, so very accessible. And it will be run from February to April this year on Saturdays, typically from 10 to 12 p.m. However, the second to last Saturday that I mentioned, where students are going to be working on their climate action plans, is going to be extended by 1 hour, just so we have a whole bunch of time to be able to collaborate on ideas and bounce ideas off of each other. All right, and with that, I will take any questions you may have about the workshop. And again, I so appreciate everyone for joining this info session today.
Great, thank you, Laurel. And I would like to open the floor up for questions from our viewers. As I mentioned, please use the Q&A box, not the chat box. If you have any questions, whether it's about content, topics you want to see or ask, there's always our instructors plan for the workshop, but if there's particular topics that participants would like to see, there's always an opportunity to also incorporate those ideas. Laurel, I'll get things rolling here. I think I want to come back to climate anxiety for a little bit. I think that is a term that some of us are familiar with and others aren't. If you could walk us through that a little bit, that would be great. And why that is important to consider in terms of youth leadership and climate action.
Yeah, absolutely. So climate anxiety, recognizing that climate change is impacting every part of our lives, it can be very overwhelming. And as a young person, as any person, just looking at all of these impacts and the magnitude of this global challenge can induce anxiety, which kind of coined the term climate anxiety. Specifically, I've heard a lot of youth use that term because I've heard them say, I'm not even 18 years old. I can't even vote. How can I make a difference? But this whole workshop is intended to show students just how they can make a difference, that it doesn't matter your age, your voice is incredibly important. It is valued by people of all different sectors as well as different ranks. I had briefly mentioned at the COP26 meeting that students had a really influential role in that meeting. And I think that is something that is going to continue as we go forward, that young people's voices are going to be brought to the forefront because their creativity, their knowledge, their passion is really what we need in the movement.
Thank you. There's two questions that I'll take live. The first is, after watching this info session, what's the first step to take if we want to participate? So this is an open enrollment workshop. So as I mentioned at the beginning, there's a fee. There is a place to sign up. I'll be sure to share that link with everybody once we wrap up today. I'll also share a version of the recording just so you have it if you want to go back to watch the section about what topics will be covered. So once you sign up, we will contact you closer to the start date. We do ask a couple of questions of our pre-college participants, mostly just to get a sense of your own background, where you're coming from, and particular topics that you are interested in exploring. To answer Jeremy's question, so we had, as I mentioned, so one of the examples I can give is so projects that have emerged from previous workshops and what their impact was. So the previous workshops, things have, because the topics have been a little different, there wasn't always a climate action plan that was implemented. I will say that for our workshop that we did on with the sensors, where students got to make CO2 sensors that measured emissions both indoors and outdoors. Two of the students went on from that workshop to lead maker sessions in their schools, and they ultimately helped their schools start building a collection of the CO2 sensors so that they could monitor air quality and have discussions and collect meaningful data in real time, and showing other students and sharing with teachers and parents sort of the hardware and software aspects of what went into these sensors, and important discussions around why it's important to be able to measure emissions in real time. So that's one sort of concrete example of what students have done, taking the information that they have from these workshops. There's also a student last semester. There was a climate and I misspoke earlier when I said there was a science communication workshop last semester. That was actually spring of 2021. And last semester, we ended up doing a climate communities and decision-making process or workshop. And there were two students who ended up taking ideas and information that they learned in that workshop, which was focused a lot on how we use climate data and what's available for decision making. And so one of the students started more of a policy and letter writing campaign within her community about to decision makers who had influence and decision-making sort of power in making sustainability decisions about certain practices that they would adopt. This was at a city level. And so there are examples, and then I will say that I'll point to, we also have summer pre-college programs, and one of the students that has that participated in that, as well as the workshop last semester on decision making, has chosen to use art as a way of communicating and bringing information to her community about climate change. And there's actually, we just put up a blog post either yesterday or today on our State of the Planet blog, where you can read about some of her, some of the artwork as well. So there's the opportunities are here for students to take this on. I know that Laurel, this is a new workshop and it has not been offered before, but Laurel participates in many of our other education and outreach initiatives. And Laura, I don't know if you want to give an example from maybe the Next Gen program in the summer that you run, and just another way that students have gone on from some of our programming to really affect change in their communities.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So one of the summer programs that I help co-run is called the Next Generation of Hudson River Educators. So that is a local in-person place-based program where we work with high school youth from Rockland County. They learn about the Hudson River directly through different field investigations. So they are out in the Hudson, sampling directly, analyzing their data, building this understanding of this really critical waterway, and then turning that information around and communicating it back to their communities in a variety of different, we've called them communication or education outputs. So it's not just communicating to the public via mouth. It could be YouTube videos. It could be Instagram Reels or TikTok videos. It was infographics or data visualizations, games to teach people about the Hudson. We used a variety of different communication methods because not everyone obtains information in the same way. And so these students were able to create these different outputs that have been shared. The digital media has been shared online, and then some of the games are being built so we can use them this summer at our Hudson River Field Station. But the students, while they were in the field collecting their samples and learning from the Hudson, there were some things that they noticed at the parks that they were working at that they wanted to improve for the community. So for example, one of their parameters that they were measuring was a habitat assessment. So looking at the abundance and diversity of native species of plants in the area that really help to bring biodiversity to the area. Also, these plants are right along the shoreline, so they're holding down a lot of sediments and preventing erosion versus any invasive plants that they found. So they did this very extensive habitat assessment, and they came back to the same site the following day, and it had all been removed and mowed over. This like beautiful natural section of plant habitat was taken out, and the students were very upset by this, but they looked at that as an opportunity to create change. So by the end of the program, they actually created a presentation of what their findings were and what could be done, and presented it to their local town board at a board meeting. And they shared that they would like to input a native plant garden, a native garden to replace the one that had been mowed over. And so the town was very receptive to this idea. So hopefully the students will be able to get some of this native plants into the ground this spring. So by the summer it will be fully in use and kind of bring back that biodiversity that they had lost. So there's a lot of change that can happen through a variety of different programs on different scales. But one big thing that is critical for all of these plans to become a reality is the collaboration and inclusion of different stakeholders. So that's something we're going to be focusing on in this workshop as well.
Great, thank you. If anybody has any additional questions, again, please let us know in the Q&A box. Just gonna take one last look. I don't see anything. So as I've said, I will follow up with everyone who has signed up. I'll share the info session recording. And if you do have questions about anything about the content of the workshop, about next steps, feel free to reach out to me directly. We hope to see you in this workshop starting in late February. And if you also have any questions for Laurel, we'll make sure that those get forwarded to her as well. So Laurel, any last words before we wrap up here?
No, I just wanted to say I'm really excited for this workshop. I hope everyone kind of takes a look, and if you do have any questions, please reach out. Yeah, I think there's a lot of change that's going to come out of this workshop, and I'm excited to work with you all.
Fantastic. Thank you. All right. Thanks to everybody who's joined today. As I said, I'll be in touch and hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you, Laurel, for your time as well.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.